Hey guys, we are continuing to surge in the race.
I'm getting owned by every single person, but let me tell you, it's actually fine. Things are going great. Let's take a look at what he's saying.
That's part of what it means. If you can't handle the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. And I'm running for president of the United States, so we're going to address any of these criticisms as they come out. One is this funny, relatively old, hackneyed one that they're pulling back out, that I somehow made a lot of money off of some failed Alzheimer's drug. Wrong. Actually, you know what is true is I did develop a drug for Alzheimer's disease. And like 99.7% of drugs that have ever been tested for Alzheimer's, thousands of other drugs, mine was one of the many that also didn't work. Now, the mythology is somehow that I made money off this failure. That's wrong. My company, Roivant, set up a subsidiary, Axovant, that Roivant could have sold shares in, that I could have sold shares in before that failure. We didn't. So how did I make my money then? Well, it turns out that I worked on a number of other medicines, 5 of which are FDA approved today.
Did he actually develop any of that crap or just paid others? Yeah, what do you think? Of course he didn't develop the drugs. What do you mean? He's not a doctor. He's not a pharmacologist or whatever. He's not a research guy. He's just a guy with money. He's as much a scientist as Elon Musk is an astronaut. It is so funny to me to see him legitimately overcome some of these classic markers that Republicans have been conditioned, have been primed to hate. One, he's brown. That's a big deal. What's going on there? You love Allah or what? You want to change America to Sharia law? I don't want that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he is a Silicon Valley big pharma guy. He's both gay and Silicon Valley because he wants to homify the nation, because that's what Silicon Valley does. They want to bring San Francisco values to the rest of America, to do global homo. And he's also a big pharma guy. So he's trying to, do global homo by vaccinating your children. And not only that, no, he's not gay. He's not actually gay. I'm saying like he's gay, brother. Like that kind of like global homo. And he's gotten a Soros sponsorship. It's fucking wild to me that he is able to skirt along while having all of these things that would tank a Republican's candidate, as long as he says, I love Trump's dick. I will ride it. I'll do tricks on it. I'll do backflips on that dick. And then people are like, you know what? I don't really care about the global homo shit. You know what I mean? It's fine. I didn't hear about it. I don't have an issue with it. All of these different aspects of Ramaswamy's background that would normally make him toxic to the conservative primary base of support can be avoided if you ride Trump's dick hard enough, which he is doing. Now, having said that, there's obviously a ceiling to how high he can fly. And now the more conspiratorial machine in the right and even mainstream right is coming after him. Now, what he could do in that situation is he could basically come across, if he was telegenic, if he was charismatic, he could counter all those attacks in a charismatic way and maybe even keep getting more attention from the audience of the voters and the base of support in the Republican primaries. The problem is the worst quality that Vivek Ramaswamy has is that he is a gigantic fucking nerd. He is Indian Blake Masters. These guys have read too many books for their own good. I think that Trump has a way of taking criticisms that are launched against him and flipping it and turning it into a positive for him because of the way he fights. Whereas Vivek Ramaswamy, on the other hand, he just comes across as a gigantic fucking nerd. And at first I thought, he will get some prominence because he's dick riding Trump and Republicans love that hero worship shit. And he is increasing in the polls. But the one thing I also mentioned to you was that the only momentum that Vivek is going to get is online, because this is where all of the hyper online, extremely annoying debate lord Republicans exist. They do not exist in the real world. They are not a base of support. They're not a big voting bloc. So Vivek has extremely Reddit energy, and he doesn't do a good job of pushing back whenever he's attacked. He doesn't seem like a fighter. I think in the eyes of the everyday guy, when they listen to him talk, they're like, what the fuck's this nerd saying? He's constantly fucking trying to defend himself by being like, I didn't mean that. I meant this, blah, 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 blah. At a certain point, being embroiled in that kind of controversy, if you don't do it like Trump, and it is very hard to do it like Trump, if you're embroiled in this controversy all the time and you got fucking even Fox News ripping into you, you're going to come across as unlikable.
Another lie that I've sort of been humored by floating around is this position that I'm somehow anti-Israel. That's just dead false and reflects the desperation of, frankly, some other candidates who feel like their fundraising might be lagging, and so they need to figure out how to attack me as a way to raise funds. That's what they seem to be doing. The fact of the matter is...
Think about it. If you ever said this about Trump, okay, when in 2016, before he did all of these like insane things for Israel, he would have just been like, no, bye-bye. I love the Jews. The Jews love me. My money guys, they're the Jews. Only trust the Jews with the money. And then everyone would be like, yeah, he's right. Them Jews do no money. Meanwhile, he's like, everyone who is attacking me and my opinion on Israel, they must be lacking in their fundraising. I love Israel. Like, no, man. No. Like, that's the difference. Do you understand what I'm saying? Trump is appealing to the regular old fucking Republican because he doesn't describe the genuine reasons as to why he feels a certain way. He just fucking says, I'm going to fix the Russian war tomorrow in one day. Day one. I'm president. I give one phone call and it's done. And he doesn't turn around and go, we actually need to set up an allegiance with Russia against the ever-present threat that China presents to the global hegemonic superpower that the United States is. It's like, you're not, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't do it like that. That shit only works online where all these like fucking weirdos are like, oh my God, Vivek, that's the guy. He's gonna do the Fourth Reich. But Indian style, you know what I mean? Like no one else. There's no real interest or need or want from the regular basis support.
Relationship with Israel will be stronger by the end of my first term than it ever has been. Actually, I was just talking about my company. Turns out one of the founding investors in my company was actually an Israeli firm. I'm going to lead Israel diplomatically into Abraham Accords 2.0. In my capacity as U.S. president, that'll be a great diplomatic accomplishment.
He said, I love Israel. One of my investors is Israeli. This is I got a black friend, but even worse, because now it's like, well, I got a black investor. Like, he couldn't even say he's got a Jewish friend. Vivek Ramaswamy is facing off against someone who he actually almost voted for in like 1994 or 2004. Back then, he was way more rotund, of course. I'm talking about Al Sharpton. But 21 minutes of Vivek Ramaswamy talking to Al Sharpton.
Come back to Politics Nation. According to a brand new Wall Street Journal poll out today, the former president holds a whopping 46-point lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. My next guest is also somewhere on that list, but with much less support, with 5%. Joining me now is 2024 presidential.
Wait, what is the DeSantis at 13, a whopping 13% points, and Haley at 8. Let me tell you something. Nikki Haley at 8%. If I'm Ron DeSantis, I'm trying to get as misogynistic as possible as quickly as possible. Because as I've stated time and time again, the only thing that every other candidate right now, including Ramaswamy, is doing is eating away at the never Trump Republicans. And Ron DeSantis is supposed to be the leader of that cause. The Republican that will defend the interests of the party. Nikki Haley is eating away at little Rhonda's market share right now in a dramatic fashion. Scary stuff for the Rhonda camp.
I want to start with comments you made repeatedly now, referring to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and author Ibram Kendi as, quote, grand wizards of the modern KKK. Now, I understand you differ with both of them politically and probably with me. But as a graduate of Harvard and Yale universities, I believe you must be aware the Ku Klux Klan is not a political party. It's a terrorist organization. Have you taken any time to reflect upon the possibility that comparing your political rivals to murderous terrorists might put their lives in danger at a time when hate crimes are on the rise?
So, Reverend Sharpton, I don't look at the world through political parties. Frankly, it's good to see it's been 20 years since we last spoke. And part of the reason that I came to that event 20...
He recognized it. He recognized it. 20 years ago, this man was like, why should I vote for you? You have no experience. Oh, how the turntables.
You know what's toxic about that old worldview of organizations like the KKK, which have been a god-awful stain on our national history, is that they say that your skin color determines what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to think. Well, you know what Ayanna Pressley said much more recently is that we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice.
I love that Vivek is literally like, no, it's racist to tell me that I can't defend white supremacy as a brown man. That's actually the true white supremacist take, is that as a brown guy, you can't clown on me for representing the interests of white guys. It's awesome. It's such a fucking funny take. I love that.
And so, yes, I do think there are echoes of a historical ugly racism in this country now showing up in new clothing.
To say we
and
don't
what I want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a united nation where we don't actually judge each other on the color of our skin.
To say that is not going with sheets and burning crosses and lynching people. If she said something you disagree with,
the point I'm making,
you can.
This is, of course, the 2023 everyone's a liberal meme that I engage in regularly, which is not a meme, but basically a fucking cardinal rule at this point. I'm imagining in the Reconstruction era, I'm imagining like reactionary black former slaves who wanted to go back to a existence of like either defending sharecropping or like legitimately going back to like slavery because they had a better class position in comparison to other black people because they were inside of the house. Like those guys advocating to return back to chattel slavery, and then like the Ku Klux Klan saying to their criticizers that they are the real racists, like the KKK being like, you know what? He's right. The fact that you will not give him a black man, they wouldn't use black man, they use a different voice there, different term there, but the fact that you, the rest of you blacks don't want to give him a voice is the real racism. My man, you're literally wearing a robe, like you're burning a cross. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just expressing my freedom of speech, brother. How dare you? What power?
Not equate Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan with somebody saying something that you think is a little controversial or a little too far. Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. I'm trying to get you to understand the pain. I know you're intellectually
honest.
Bro, he's an MSNBC commentator. Like, are you even allowed to say that? Like, what are you saying? You're talking to an MSNBC commentator. Like, you're calling him intellectually honest? You're supposed to say the opposite.
Intellectually honest guy, and so I will remind you that Hakeem Jeffries drew analogies between Donald Trump and the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think you had him on pressing him in the same way.
Yeah, I wonder why. One, well, by the way, I don't even like Hakeem Jeffries, but one, he's black. Two, Donald Trump is analogous to the KKK. Many Republicans are. Many of them you are defending. This idea that, like, the fucking Klansmen are not very much deeply embedded in modern Republican Party politics is so stupid. What are you talking about? Why do we always have to sit here and act like the reality in front of our fucking eyes is just not real? Like, whenever I hear Tedward Rafael Cruz talk about like, you know, the real clans is actually the Democrats. And it's like, you defended the Confederacy last week. You said that they have to have their monuments up and that people attacking them are terrorists or whatever. Like, you can't on the one fucking hand unironically defend the Confederates, notice that the people voting for you in the fucking voting booths are wearing the Confederate garb, the flags and whatnot, have it as their bumper stickers on their fucking cars, and then simultaneously be like, well, the Democrats are the real ones who are defending the Klan, or the Democrats are the ones who are defending the Confederacy. It's like, it's so stupid. What I hate the most is, in order to engage with a lot of conservative politics, you have to dumb yourself down. Like, in order to even understand the arguments that they're trying to make, or why those arguments are actually relevant, or why those arguments actually make sense, you have to literally take a fucking pan and slam your head with it. You're just like bleeding out of your fucking ears and eyes and nose, and a big chunk of your brain has like fallen out of your fucking earlobes. That's only then can you just be like, all right, you know what? I get it. I understand where you're coming from, Ted. Thank you. At the top of the hour, there is a 3-minute ad break. Republicans know that their power is dwindling, and it's been dwindling for years. They're just scrounging up support from wherever they can, even if it's from racist, crazies, dumbasses. I mean, Republicans have always tapped into the racist, crazies, and dumbasses market. If anything, their power is currently seemingly dwindling because they are in a bind here where in order to make it out of the primary, you have to be as crazy as possible. But in order to win the general, you can't go too crazy. I do believe that there is an endless need to keep pushing the boundaries, right? And in a country where reactionaries are not given anything to react to, they have to keep pressing the issue over and over again because they don't have anything to claw back. If the Democrats actually did what they are supposed to, what they claim they want to do, improving material conditions, genuinely advocating for social progress, creating checks and boundaries to ensure that that social progress doesn't go away, then Republicans would react to that and try to desperately claw that back. When there is no new thing that they can get mad at because the Democrats are basically polite conservatives in many respects, you end up being the guy who pushes the needle forward. And what are you going to push for? You're going to push for culture war issues. First, it's like, we just don't want teenagers to get hormone blockers or whatever. And then it goes into, actually, we don't want adults to get any kind of elective surgery as well. Actually, we just decided that it's illegal to be trans, or it's illegal to be a doctor that is like giving gender affirming care to trans people specifically. Not cis people, of course. Cis people get gender affirming care all the fucking time. I myself included. I literally have a fucking subscription where I get hormone blockers, a prostate medication for my fucking hairline, but that's perfectly fine and dandy. Joe Rogan himself, a transphobic person, literally does TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. It is HRT. HRT is hormone replacement therapy. So remember, all of that stuff is perfectly fine and dandy, okay? It's just not fine when trans people are engaging in it because that's unacceptable, right? We've been geared to get mad at that. The point is, if there isn't any protections on the Democratic side, protections that the Democrats run on and claim that they're going to engage in, but never end up engaging in, then Republicans don't have anything to fucking advocate against, so they just have to do their own thing. They have to be the ones leading the conversation because they do. In the United States of America, Republicans do run the government. They do run the conversation. It does not matter. They are doing that from a losing position all the time. Make no mistake, this wave of anti-trans legislation or this wave of, for example, abortion restrictions, the criminalization of abortion happened under a Democratic Party's administration. Even when they're losing, they're actually still the ones pushing the narrative. They're actually still the ones making gains politically. So in the absence of liberals actually doing anything to protect people, all they have left is to push the boundaries further and further. And the more they push and the more they actually act out on those legislative desires or act out on those desires from the most radical components in their fucking base of support, the more evil they look. That is the crisis of conflict internally within the Republican Party today. Democrats don't do enough. So in the absence of that, Republicans have to find something to claw back. And what are they clawing back? They're clawing back protections that were set forth for decades at this point. They're clawing back civil liberties in an effort to appease some of the most important bases of support that they've had for years and years.
Let me first play you the tape of you and I 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Good. Let's get to my question here. Go ahead.
Reverend Sharpton, hello. I'm Vivek, and I want to ask you, last week on the show we had Senator Kerry, and this week and the week before we had Senator Edwards. And my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience. I got...
Chat falling for the classic meme. He didn't have hair. He was just hiding it. It's a classic move. I even do it as well. Luckily, my hairline is nowhere near as bad as Vivek's, but come on, chat. Those are strategic bangs. Exactly. Come on.
Involved in the political movement when I was 12 years old. And I've been involved in social policy for the last 30 years. So don't confuse people that have a job with political experience. So 20 years later, now my turn to ask you, of all the Republican candidates out there, why should someone vote for you? You support Donald Trump, who never held office until he was president. Well, you putting a different standard on me, but I won't even make the racial application there. Why should we vote for you?
Listen, at the age of 18, I think you persuaded me on that one, that political experience is not the same as holding office. To tell you the truth, the reason I came out there and I was intrigued.
Can I put out right-wing press that Sharpton converted a young, well, I don't want to take credit for
to believe outside of political experience, I'm going to tell you the truth. One of the things, I'll even give you one more for you, okay?
I feel like Vivek is so uncompromising in like putting on a front, a television persona, anytime he's doing like media hits, that the one time that he is like emoting, he's still emoting by just doing more of the same, like, well, let me tell you. And there is no shot that this plays well to just like regular normies. I mean, it's on MSNBC, so it doesn't matter. Not a lot of Republican primary voters are watching MSNBC. But if you don't have charisma and you're just like, well, let me tell you what you got wrong here, okay, Al? Like, when you do that, it's like you're not charming. You're just, like, annoying. Everyone can see your fucking weird-ass, like, salesman voice. It doesn't matter. He's running for VP, not P. Brother, there is 0% chance that someone whose last name is Ramaswamy is going to be featured next to the last name Trump. He's at most, if he's lucky, getting like insanely, unimaginably lucky, maybe getting a cabinet position. But even then, he's most likely not getting a cabinet position. He wants probably Department of Education. He wants to be education secretary, but he's most likely not even getting that. He's most likely getting another Andrew Yang style. He'll get a book deal and a media job where they'll bring him around to be the defender of Donald Trump. That is in a way that is like very frustrating to liberals, but in a way that it's like content. You know what I mean? That's it. I think this is a calculated guy. I don't think he thinks he's getting the VP position. I think he thinks he's possibly getting the Department of Education position.
Now, NBC is reporting that you were once a recipient of a fellowship for immigrants and children of immigrants from the Soros Foundation. You were awarded the fellowship in 2011 to support your studies at Yale Law School. And the issue is that you, the child of Indian immigrants, are now accusing some immigrants of carrying out an invasion of the United States. Soros helped you through college. Explain all of this.
Come on. So you know what's really kind of funny about this? That you draw a distinction between legal and illegal immigrants like it doesn't exist. And I think that's a major problem in this country. I think that we need to use our own military.
Wait, so George Soros is only helping legal immigration? Okay, got it. Thanks, man. You should definitely say that a lot more on the Republican trail.
You say we run the country with a nation of laws and that we ought to follow the laws. Then how can you and your colleagues stand on a debate stage and say that you would endorse and support for president a man if he was convicted of breaking the law and a felony in Donald Trump?
First of all, I'm running to be the next president, and I expect to be the next president because I want to reunite this country in a way that we badly need. But I have made a pledge to be on that debate stage, and I intend to keep it because I think the way we do things in the United States of America is that the people of this country get to decide who governs, not the administrative police state. So for better or worse, if it's a guy I disagree with or a guy I agree with, in this case, Donald Trump, I do agree with most of his policies.
But the question posed to you all
you got to follow the Constitution. You have to follow the Constitution.
My favorite has been in this interview so far when Vivek Ramaswamy deadass said George Soros is like pro-immigration grants that I am a recipient of is actually good because it's only given to legal immigrants. You can't, on the one hand, be a Rethuglican, a Trump-supporting Rethuglican, and then on the other hand, turn around and be like, and the George Soros grant was perfectly fine because I'm a legal immigrant. Like, you think Republicans make that distinction? Brother, depending on what level of racism they're operating on, they quite literally say that George Soros, as a Jewish person, is doing this to dismantle the Western supremacy. Like, what are we talking about? Therein lies the fucking problem with Vivek as a guy who wants to be like a Trump guy while simultaneously being like a World Economic Forum billionaire lib for most of his fucking life.
Do you believe, let me ask you this, because you and Trump have both been accused of trafficking conspiracy theories. Do you believe Barack Obama was born in the United States, and do you think it was appropriate for Trump to suggest to otherwise, even as evidence mounted, that the claim was a lie?
I think I have every reason to believe Obama was born in the U.S., and I have never brought up that issue, and I have no idea why we're actually discussing that. But what I have talked about is, for example, Saudi Arabia was absolutely involved in 9/11, despite the fact that our government refused to acknowledge it. That COVID-19 did originate in a lab in China, despite the fact that our government called that a conspiracy theory. That we still haven't seen the transgender shooter.
It is kind of funny that he's trying to debate Al Sharpton on like black issues. You know what I mean? You might not agree with him. You might think he's a charlatan. You might think he does not look as hot as he used to when he was more rotund. But like, he has so much more experience on literally owning everyone on black issues. Like, it's a wild thing to try to fucking put out there. It's like trying to debate Vivek on fucking being like a horrible pharmaceutical VC-backed CEO guy. Like, that's what your experience is. First of all, he's OG. Like, he's the OG, like, black nationalist guy. And he's like you said, he's been doing this since he was 12, which is true. In the 90s, he was a black nationalist defense guy. And nowadays, he's more of a lib, but he has also had his fair share of like more conservative ways of approaching black issues too.
Shooter manifesto out of Nashville. So those aren't conspiracy theories. Those are conspiracy realities. That's what matters.
Barack Obama was born in Kenya. He's a man that you said was the best president this century. Should he have continued trafficking the Kenya lie about Barack Obama?
Look, I will say, as a presidential candidate before he ran for president, I think he made absolutely the right decision to say that that was a ridiculous theory. Barack Obama was born in the United States. And frankly, I don't think we should dignify the things that aren't true versus talking about the hard things that were labeled conspiracy theories, but that are true now. So I actually believe in truth over theory. I'm tied to facts.
All right. Well, you certainly came.
I don't get how he's deflecting away from the Barack Obama thing. Like, what's the argument there? He's saying that, like, Trump actually was uncovering a Saudi conspiracy by claiming Barack Obama is a Kenyan Muslim. Like, is that what he's... Like, actually, Trump was, what, like, doing the birther shit is obviously silly, which we, say is silly now. But it's actually still tied to something tangible, like only a Kenyan Muslim man would actually hide Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11, which is why Trump thought that he was actually a Kenyan Muslim man. Oh, the fucking pharma bro who rug pulled investors on a rebranded defunct product he misrepresented. This dude is literal poltergeist. I mean, he's a charlatan. He's a capitalist demon. He's a vulturous parasite. But like, he's not winning anything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's more content at this point. Ramaswamy is the most irritating debate bro that plays the devil's advocate, which actually is their opinion in your uni poli-sci classes. Yeah, 100%. But I don't think Americans like debate bros as much. I think they like a charismatic, telegenic guy who says it like it is, who's like unapologetic, who represents their anger towards like liberal elite perverts or whatever the fuck, and even Republicans. And Trump has been able to channel that anger perfectly, especially because Trump doesn't engage in Ramaswamy style debate pervertry. Whenever he's like delivering a retort to someone who's like, you said that's my African American over there, Trump will be like, yeah, and he is my African American. Why are you being racist? He loves it. Why do you care? Boom, it's over. The conversation is done. Right? When you are qualifying what you have to say, when you are describing what you actually meant, you're kind of losing. Democrats do this all the time because Democrats don't care about winning. They care about being a dignified loser. Republicans, on the other hand, they give a shit about winning. All right, let's hear how we got cooked again.
Contorted. So I think you have to understand the status quo.
This is clearly another instance where we've seen you embrace the former president. He's obviously also stepping up and showing some support for you. A young, interesting candidate he's referring to you as. How do you differentiate yourself? We know your similarities. Where do you differentiate yourself with the former president, Donald Trump?
I'm 38 years old. I have fresh legs. We are reaching the next generation of young Americans. That is why I can win this election in a landslide. Look at the way we're running this campaign. I've gone to the inner city of Chicago, Kensington in the middle of Philadelphia, places where traditional Republican candidates dare not touch. And I think this cannot be a 50.1 election. I think this has to be a landslide moral mandate, like Ronald Reagan delivered in 1980. That's what I'm aiming to do in 2024.
Based on the question, does that mean you're directly aligned with his policies? I didn't hear a difference other than age.
We have our differences, but they are small. By and large, we're the two America First candidates in this race. Everybody else embraces the neocon foreign policy view. So I think
I love the idea that, like, his big differential from the rest of the Republicans running is that he's not embracing neocon foreign policy, which, like, Trump didn't, right? Or at least when he was speaking about wars or whatever, he came across as, like, much more reasonable, something that you hadn't really heard from Republicans ever before, which was George W. Bush is wrong and the Iraq war was bullshit and it should have never happened and Hillary Clinton is a fucking warmonger. I will be a peaceful dove. That actually was unique when Trump did it, right? I mean, Ron Paul doesn't count, guys. Come on. I like how he called the other Republicans neocons that are rhinos. Yeah, even rhino versus neocon is like a better take. He is, again, too articulate. He is too nerdy. The idea that he's like not a neocon, I don't know how well that plays. Just say that you just got to do Trump. I don't know. You like, oh yeah, the Iraq war was bullshit. Joe Biden is being too much of a warmonger still or something. I don't know.
Deeply aligned on policy 90+% of the way. There are some small differences. I would rescind affirmative action. I would militarize the southern border instead of just building the wall. I would shut down the U.S. Department of Education, not just put a good person, Betsy DeVos, on top to reform it. Those are details. But the main difference is I will be able to unite this country by leading the next generation of Americans to a vision of what it means to be an American. Revive national pride in that next generation where it is lacking.
Neither of them are feeling it.